Connie Sue, and I love applique. In this video, I'm going to share with you one of the techniques of my quick prep applique. As you can see, my block is a work in process. Oh, by the way, these stems were not designed to be symmetrical. They may look just a little funny now, but I think when the whole block is done, it's going to come together and look just great. I have completed all of the reverse applique and inner points. And these can be a real bugaboo. Many of us aren't real excited about inner points or reverse applique. However, it doesn't have to be a stumbling block. Let me show you how in this video today. The first step is to trace my pattern onto the wrong side of the background fabric. In this particular case, I've already done this, as you saw from the previous photo. So I'm just going to use a small 6.5 inch square, trace the section that has the inner point and the reverse applique, and I'll be using this for my demo. I have used a number 2 lead pencil to trace the pattern on the wrong side of my background fabric. I have pressed fairly firmly, both because I want you to see it in this demo, but also because if I were doing the whole thing, I might discover that it would rub off as time goes on. So it is very important to press firmly enough that it won't rub off. Next, we will place our applique fabric, and I have some green here that I'm going to use for these stems. I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to mark the outermost edges. I'm placing my pins directly on the pencil marks. I'm going to pretend it's only 2 little loops here, and we're only going to go down here. Okay, now you wouldn't need to use pins. You could use a light box for placement of your fabric, but I am not always where I have a light box, and so I have learned to place my fabric using this pin method of placement. Once I have all my pins in place, and they define the outermost edges, I flip it to the right side, and now I can see pretty much where the fabric needs to go. I can take my fabric, my applique fabric, place it over the pins. I can pull the edge back to be sure I have allowed at least a seam allowance width all the way around. Once I'm confident I am in the right place, I can pin this fabric in place so it won't move on me. Flipping to the back, I can remove the pins I put in earlier to mark the position. And there we are. There is one last step before we begin our applique, and that is to baste our pattern. It's called back basting. I have a needle that has been threaded with thread that is either 50 weight or heavier. 30 is my favorite, 30 weight is my favorite, but I also have been known to use quilting thread. I am not going to put a knot at the end. You can if you choose, that's personal preference. If I applique it quickly enough, it just seems like an extra step and I don't bother. I'm going in 1 to 2, can you see this? 1 to 2 background threads ahead of where my basting thread came out, putting my point of my needle in and taking a bite of approximately 1/4 inch. I'll repeat that. I'm going just, a stitch or 2, a background thread or 2, ahead of where the thread came out and taking a bite of about 1/4 inch. I'm doing this directly on the pencil line. So let me take a few more and we'll flip it over. What is happening is that I am creating a line of stitches that is very, very short or tiny on the back, but that are longer on the front. In fact, they are almost continuous on the front. Excuse me, I need to keep this up here where you can see it. Doesn't do us much good if you can't see it. Okay, let me take and flip this over. By the way, I call this stitch the quick prep stitch because I use it specifically for basting in my quick prep applique method. And you'll see these tiny little stitches on the back. But on the front, we have a line of stitches that is almost continuous. That line is just as good as a chalk line or a pencil line or any other type of line that you'd like to create for marking your applique. I will go ahead now and finish back basting this demo. Then I'll see you in part 2, where I will show you how to actually stitch it.